A TikToker on trial for disrespecting the tomb of the unknown soldier laughed at the guard in court. She didn't know his silent march was a promise to his own fallen brother, a secret he was about to reveal. Madison Lake considered the Washington, D.C. federal courthouse to be terribly drab. The lighting was unflattering, the dark wood oppressive, and the air thick with a solemnity that was, in her professional opinion, totally off-brand. At 22, with 3.1 million TikTok followers, Madison's brand was a carefully curated whirlwind of irreverent humor, edgy fashion, and the kind of manufactured drama that kept the algorithm happy. This trial, for the minor inconvenience of trespassing at Arlington National Cemetery, was both an annoyance and an opportunity. "This is literally insane," she whispered to her high-priced lawyer, scrolling through the comments on her latest post. "My engagement is through the roof. #Tombgate is trending. Can we get this over with? I have a brand collab call at 4. Her lawyer, a weary man in a tailored suit, sighed. "Madison, please. This is a federal judge. Try to look remorseful." "Remorseful? For what?" she scoffed, adjusting the designer sunglasses perched on her head. "I danced. I didn't burn a flag. It was content." Her infamous video had been a masterpiece of viral disrespect. She had crossed the ceremonial barriers at the tomb of the unknown soldier, mimicking the sentinel's rifle spin, posing seductively near the sacred space, all set to a trending pop song. The caption, "Toy Soldier Vibes," had earned her millions of views and a federal summons. The courtroom doors opened and Judge Helena Bryant entered. At 60, she carried the quiet, unshakable authority of a woman who had spent 20 years as a commander in the U.S. Navy. Her gaze swept the room, pausing for a fraction of a second on Madison's sunglasses before settling on the prosecutor. She did not look amused. The trial began. The prosecutor outlined the charges, speaking of dignity, of honor, of the sanctity of the nation's most sacred ground. Madison barely listened, already framing the narrative for her next video. "They're trying to cancel me for having fun. The establishment is so scared of us." When the prosecutor asked if she understood the gravity of mocking a soldier engaged in his solemn duty, Madison couldn't help herself. She let out a small, theatrical laugh. "Seriously?" she said, her voice dripping with the casual disdain she usually reserved for last season's fashion. "You seriously think marching back and forth in a fancy costume makes you a hero?" A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Her lawyer closed his eyes, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Judge Bryant's face remained a mask of stone, but a dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. The man who entered was the personification of everything Madison Lake was not. He was silence, discipline, and absolute purpose. Specialist Elijah Crane of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, walked to the witness stand, his movements so precise he seemed to float. His ceremonial uniform was a work of art, every crease sharp, every piece of brass gleaming under the harsh courtroom lights. He stood before the court, his back ramrod straight, his eyes fixed on the far wall, never once glancing at the defendant. The prosecutor began. "Specialist Crane, can you please describe your duties as a sentinel at the tomb of the unknown soldier?" Elijah's voice was calm and steady, a practiced, professional tone. "My duty, sir, is to guard the tomb, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, in any weather. I walk 21 steps down the mat. I turn and face the tomb for 21 seconds. I turn again, switch my weapon to the outside shoulder, and wait another 21 seconds before walking 21 steps back. I repeat this until I am relieved." "And what is the significance of the number 21, the prosecutor asked. "It symbolizes the 21-gun salute, the highest military honor that can be bestowed." Madison rolled her eyes, a gesture not lost on Judge Bryant. "Specialist," the prosecutor continued, his voice softening slightly. "This is a difficult, demanding duty. Why did you volunteer for it?" Elijah's perfect composure wavered for just a moment. His gaze, fixed on the far wall, seemed to look through it, into another time, another place. A quiet afternoon in rural Montana. The memory hit him like a physical blow. He was 19, home from his first year of college. The sun was warm on the porch, his mother was humming in the kitchen, and a dusty sedan with government plates was pulling up the gravel driveway. Two soldiers in immaculate dress uniforms got out. Elijah knew, before they even knocked on the door, he knew. He remembered his mother's hands flying to her mouth, the sound of a glass shattering on the kitchen floor. He remembered the folded flag, the crisp, formal words that meant nothing and everything all at once. The Secretary of the Army has asked me to express his deep regret. His older brother, Sergeant Nicholas Crane, the boy who had taught him how to fish, the man who had been his hero long before he ever wore a uniform, was not coming home from Afghanistan. Later, at the funeral, his mother, her face a mask of unbearable grief, had clutched his arm and whispered, "Don't let them forget him, Eli. Please don't ever let them forget my boy." Back in the courtroom, a single tear escaped Elijah's eye, tracing a silent path down his stoic face. He quickly wiped it away. "I volunteered for this duty, sir," he said, his voice now thick with an emotion he could no longer contain, because of a promise. "My brother, Sergeant Nicholas Crane, was killed in action in 2012. He was a hero. He received a medal. He had a funeral. We had a grave to visit. We were the lucky ones." He turned his gaze to the gallery, where several Gold Star families sat, their faces etched with a familiar, shared pain. The unknowns, they had none of that. They have no name, no stone, no place for their families to mourn. They represent all the soldiers whose mothers never got a flag, whose children never got to say goodbye. The ones who were never found. They represent the ultimate sacrifice. His voice grew stronger, ringing with a profound, holy purpose. "So when I take those 21 steps, it is not a performance. It is a vow. Each step is a prayer for a soul we cannot name. The 21-second pause is not for rest. It is a moment of silent communion with those who have no one left to speak for them." He reached into the inner pocket of his uniform jacket. His gloved hand emerged not with a weapon, but with a folded piece of thin paper. He carefully unfolded it, revealing the charcoal rubbing of a name from a headstone. "This," he said, his voice cracking as he held it up for the court to see, "is Sergeant Nicholas Crane. He is buried in Section 60 at Arlington. I guard the tomb of the unknowns, because I couldn't guard him." The courtroom was utterly still. Even Madison's lawyer had his head bowed. The Gold Star mothers were weeping silently into their handkerchiefs. Then, for the first and only time, Specialist Elijah Crane looked directly at Madison Lake. His eyes were not angry. They were filled with a deep, sorrowful fire. "You danced where silence lives," he said, each word landing with devastating precision. "You filmed jokes where mothers cry. You didn't just cross a rope on the ground. You stepped over a line of sacrifice that has been drawn in the blood of patriots. A line that thousands of us would still die to protect." Madison's jaw dropped. The color drained from her face. The smug, confident influencer vanished, replaced by a pale, trembling young woman who was, for the first time in her life, truly seeing the consequences of her actions. Judge Helena Bryant let the silence hang in the room for a long, heavy moment. Her own memories were stirring, the smell of salt and steel on a Navy destroyer, the weight of command, the faces of the young sailors she had been responsible for. She looked at Specialist Crane, and saw not just a witness, but a brother in arms. She looked at Madison Lake, and saw not just a defendant, but a profound and dangerous ignorance. "Miss Lake," the judge finally said, her voice firm and clear. "Please rise." Madison stood, her legs visibly shaking. "I have heard the testimony," Judge Bryant continued. "I have reviewed the evidence of your actions. And I have heard you mock the very concept of heroic sacrifice. You asked if marching back and forth makes someone a hero. The answer is no. It is the reason for the march that defines the hero. She stared down at Madison from the bench. "The sentence for your crime will not be a fine you can pay with a sponsored post, nor will it be a jail term that would only feed your desire for notoriety. Your sentence will be an education. You are sentenced to 200 hours of community service, to be served exclusively at Arlington National Cemetery. Your duties will include the daily placement of flags on graves, grounds maintenance, and mandatory volunteer work with the Gold Star Family Support Group. You will learn the names of the men and women buried there. You will listen to their stories. You will understand the cost of the freedom you so carelessly abused. Only after the successful completion of these hours, and a formal, public letter of apology, will your record be cleared." Madison nodded, tears now streaming down her face. The sunglasses were gone. The defiance was gone. All that was left was shame. "This court is adjourned," Judge Bryant declared. As Specialist Crane turned to leave the witness stand, she did something no one in the courtroom had ever seen. "Specialist Crane," she called out. He stopped and turned. Judge Helena Bryant stood up from her chair, stepped down from the bench, and walked towards him. She stood before him, not as a judge, but as a fellow veteran. And in front of everyone, the former Navy commander rendered a sharp, perfect salute to the young Army sentinel. "Your brother would be proud," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Elijah Crane's composure finally broke. With a tear rolling down his cheek, he returned the salute. And then, the gallery rose as one, the Gold Star families, the other veterans, the lawyers, the reporters, their silent, standing presence a testament to an honor that had been defiled, and now, finally, restored. 3 months later, the autumn sun cast long shadows across the endless, rolling fields of white headstones at Arlington. The air was crisp and quiet, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant, rhythmic click of heels on pavement. Madison Lake, dressed in simple jeans and a plain gray sweatshirt, knelt on the damp grass. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face free of makeup. There were no phones, no cameras, no followers. There was only her, a bucket of water, a soft cloth, and the stone she was carefully, reverently cleaning. It bore the name of a young Marine, killed in Beirut in 1983. She had learned his story last week. She knew his wife's name, the names of the children he'd never met. She worked slowly, her movements deliberate. The arrogance that had once defined her was gone, replaced by a quiet, somber humility. For weeks, she had performed her duties without complaint. She had listened to the stories of grieving mothers, she had held the hands of aging widows, she had placed thousands of small American flags beside the graves of the fallen. The world of likes and shares felt like a frivolous dream from another lifetime. This was real. The weight of it was real. In the distance, she saw a lone figure in a perfect blue uniform, marching his solitary, 21-step path. It was Specialist Elijah Crane. She had seen him many times during her service, but had never dared to approach him. He was a part of this sacred landscape, a living monument to the sacrifice she was only just beginning to comprehend. As he executed a flawless turn to face the tomb, his gaze swept across the cemetery. For a fraction of a second, his eyes met hers across the sea of white stone. He did not smile. He did not scowl. His face remained a mask of professional discipline. But he held her gaze for a single, extra beat, and then, he gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. Tears welled in Madison's eyes. She nodded back, a silent message passing between the guard and the penitent. It was not forgiveness. It was not absolution. It was something more profound. It was the beginning of understanding. And in the hallowed silence of Arlington, that was more than enough. What does it truly mean to show respect for sacrifice? Is it a lesson that can be taught, or must it be learned? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe.